It was supposed to be an ordinary press briefing. Routine questions, routine lighting, routine tension. Nothing more, nothing less. But on this particular afternoon, something happened that no one in that bustling room would ever forget. The press hall was packed wall to wall with journalists, photographers, cameramen, and political analysts. Bright white spotlights made the entire room feel hotter than it actually was. Microphones lined up along a long desk like soldiers ready for battle. Reporters whispered hurriedly to one another, adjusting their notes, preparing their questions, sharpening their commentary even before the event began. Then, a wave of movement. Security stepped aside. The doors opened, and Donald Trump entered the room. Immediately, the air shifted. Cameras clicked like 1,000 insects buzzing at the same time. His stride was steady, slow, deliberate, and confident. Every eye locked on him. Even those who disagreed with him couldn't deny the magnetic energy he carried whenever he walked into a room. He scanned the crowd briefly, giving a tight smile here, a nod there. The front row straightened their posture as he moved closer. It was a standard beginning of every press event. But destiny had a small twist planned for today. Trump approached a group of reporters gathered near the left side of the room. One of them, a journalist known for his tough, often confrontational style, stood right at the front. This reporter had questioned Trump many times before. Their interactions were always intense, filled with verbal sparring, but today's tension felt different, sharper, almost heavy. As Trump came closer, he did something simple, something automatic, something polite. He extended his hand toward the reporter. A moment of pure silence followed. Not a single camera clicked. Not a single pen scratched paper. Not a single whisper floated through the air. Everyone waited for the reporter's response. The reporter looked at Trump's outstretched hand and didn't move, not even an inch. His arm stayed firmly crossed against his chest. His jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed just slightly, but enough for everyone to sense the coldness behind them. Trump's hand remained there, open, steady, unforced. And still, the reporter refused to lift his hand. People shifted in their seats, uncomfortable. Some of the cameramen exchanged confused glances. A few journalists leaned forward, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Even the sound engineers forgot to breathe for a moment. A handshake was not just a gesture. It was a sign of respect, basic human respect. And seeing it rejected so openly, so intentionally, felt like a slap delivered without a word. In the back of the room, someone muttered, "Did he really just do that?" Another whispered, "This is bad, this is really bad." To refuse a handshake in front of millions of viewers, under the bright lights, in the center of a political stage, was not just an action. It was a statement of defiance, a symbolic rejection, a message louder than any question the reporter had ever asked. And Trump's outstretched hand still hadn't moved. The tension became so thick it felt like the room itself was holding its breath. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate, unsure whether to zoom in or keep their distance. Every second stretched into something slow and heavy, like watching a scene in slow motion. Then something even more interesting happened. The reporter lifted his chin slightly, almost proudly, as if he wanted the moment to be seen, as if he wanted the world to witness a refusal. Crystal clear, unmissable, undeniable. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate, a calculated move, performed in front of the man standing right across from him, offering something as simple as a handshake. And while the reporter stayed frozen, arms crossed tightly, Trump remained still with his hand extended, only for a few seconds, but long enough for everyone to feel the shock settling into their bones. People in the room tried to read Trump's expression. Would he snap back? Would he make a comment? Would he pull his hand away angrily? Would he react in the way everyone expected him to? No one knew. The entire room felt like it was balancing on the edge of something unpredictable. One wrong move could explode into a heated confrontation. One sharp word could set the room on fire. But for now, all anyone could see was a single image. A handshake offered. A handshake refused. And a silence that spoke louder than anything Trump or the reporter had said in months. The moment wasn't just awkward. It was historic. The kind of moment that makes global headlines. The kind that becomes a viral clip, replayed 1,000 times from 1,000 angles. The kind that leaves a mark, not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't. It was in that tiny slice of time, those strange, heavy seconds, that the entire direction of the press event changed forever. That was the moment that stopped everyone cold. For a moment, the world seemed to freeze. The kind of stillness that comes right before thunder shakes the sky. The kind of silence that feels too heavy, too loaded, too meaningful to be accidental. Everyone in that press room sensed it immediately. Trump's hand was still suspended in midair, now slowly lowering as the reality of the reporter's refusal settled over the room. But it wasn't the lowering of the hand that captured everyone's attention. It was a calmness on Trump's face, a calmness so unexpected it made people look twice. Reporters who had taken a breath to prepare for an explosion found themselves confused when nothing happened. Some had already angled their cameras, expecting that fiery Trump reaction everyone talked about. His critics braced for a sharp remark. His supporters braced for a comeback line. But Trump did none of that. There was no raised voice, no sarcastic comment, no challenge, no anger, no visible irritation. Instead, he stood there with a stillness that didn't match the heated atmosphere swirling around him. Inside the minds of the journalists, a rapid series of thoughts fired like sparks. Is he going to say something? Is he ignoring it? Is this a trap? A strategy? A joke? Why is he so calm? The reporter who refused a handshake had clearly expected a reaction. His body language said it all. His shoulders were stiff, his chin slightly raised, his expression hardened. As if preparing for a verbal clash he believed was coming next. He looked almost ready to defend himself, ready to push back, ready to turn a simple handshake into a headline-worthy confrontation. But Trump's unexpected stillness threw him off balance. Trump's eyes flicked toward the folded arms of the reporter, then toward his face, then back to the room. Not angry, not offended, just observing, evaluating, making a choice. It was a kind of pause seasoned politicians learn only after years in front of cameras, where a single expression can change everything. That pause was powerful. It wasn't weakness. It wasn't hesitation. It was control. And everyone felt it. The seconds that followed stretched on like slow, rolling waves. Every reporter watched closely, waiting for the storm that never came. Some leaned forward, others sat back cautiously, and a few whispered to colleagues, unsure what they were witnessing. Cameras zoomed in, microphones angled forward. Tension lived in the air like static electricity. People expected intensity, but what they got was composure. Finally, Trump gave a subtle nod, as if silently acknowledging the moment without letting it rule him. He withdrew his hand with no drama, no sigh, no expression of offense. It was a kind of gesture that said, "This doesn't shake me." That calm reaction didn't just defuse the moment, it transformed it. Instead of escalating the silent aggression into a verbal battle, Trump simply absorbed it, then moved forward as if he chose to rise above it. It was a surprising response, a strategic response, a response that nobody in the room had predicted. This calm, steady behavior didn't just change the tone of the event, it changed the story itself. What was supposed to be a small act of rudeness suddenly became a stage for a bigger moment. A leader staying composed under direct disrespect. The storm never came, but the stillness left everyone stunned. What happened next was something no one in that room was prepared for. Every journalist, every cameraman, every assistant expected a reaction. Something sharp, something cutting, something fiery. After all, Trump was known for speaking his mind. A refused handshake? Live cameras? A tense audience waiting to pounce on every word? It should have been a recipe for confrontation. But instead, Trump broke the silence with something that caught everyone completely off guard. He smiled. Not a mocking smile, not a sarcastic grin, just a small, controlled smile that softened the tension crackling in the air. Then, with surprising ease, he said, loud enough for the entire room to hear, "That's all right. We won't force any handshakes today." A few reporters let out nervous laughter, unsure whether that line was meant as a joke or a shield. Others stared wide-eyed, shocked that Trump's first response wasn't anger but humor. Even the cameraman, who usually kept straight faces, looked momentarily confused. But Trump didn't stop there. He shifted his weight, placed both hands lightly on the podium, and scanned the room with a calmness that looked almost rehearsed, but wasn't. Anyone who knew his speaking style knew this wasn't his usual approach. He wasn't brushing the moment aside. He was controlling it, reshaping it, turning it into something unexpected. The reporter who refused a handshake seemed frozen. His posture stiffened even more, realizing that his attempt to provoke Trump had failed. What he wanted was confrontation. Something that would give him a powerful clip, something that would put him at the center of a political clash. But Trump didn't give him the satisfaction. Instead, he spoke again, this time in a tone that was calm, firm, but not harsh. "Respect works both ways," he said, his voice steady. "You decide how you show yours." The line dropped like a stone into a still pond. It wasn't an insult, but it wasn't gentle either. It was a boundary, a reminder, a message delivered without raising his voice. Reporters exchanged glances. Some leaned forward, sensing the weight of that statement. Others scribbled frantically into their notebooks. Cameramen zoomed in even closer, knowing this moment would become the centerpiece of every headline, every broadcast, every social media clip within hours. The reporter shifted uncomfortably. His arms were still crossed, but suddenly, the pose didn't look strong. It looked defensive. The calmness in Trump's response made his refusal seem smaller, pettier, and more transparent than before. Trump stood tall, not defensive, not rattled. His composure made him look like the one in control, even though he had just been disrespected publicly. He took a slow breath, then continued the briefing as if nothing unusual had happened. He answered questions directly. He addressed policies with clarity. He maintained the same calm delivery throughout the session. But everyone knew something had changed. The incident had created an unspoken shift in the room. Trump's unexpected composure had turned a simple act of hostility into a lesson in emotional control. Instead of reacting with heat, he chose restraint, and that choice became more powerful than any comeback could have been. It wasn't the moment the reporter expected. It wasn't the reaction critics predicted. And it certainly wasn't the drama the cameras were waiting to capture. It was something better, more intentional, more strategic, more surprising. A calm response, delivered at the perfect moment, became the most unforgettable part of the entire encounter. The moment the briefing ended, the press room erupted like a shaken soda bottle finally opened. Reporters rushed toward the exits, talking over each other, stumbling across equipment, eager to be the first to upload their version of what had just unfolded. The refused handshake, Trump's calm reaction, the silent tension, it was all too dramatic, too symbolic, too unexpected to ignore. Within minutes, clips started popping up online, first on Twitter, then Instagram, then TikTok, then Facebook. Even platforms where political content barely survives were flooded with the 12-second video of the handshake moment. Each version had different captions. Reporter refuses Trump's handshake. Trump responds calmly after public disrespect. Awkward moment goes viral. Who was right? Who was wrong? The internet was suddenly divided into camps, each analyzing the same clip, but seeing completely different meanings. Group 1, Trump handled it like a leader. This group praised the composure, the humor, the control he displayed. They replayed the moment where Trump smiled and delivered the line, "We won't force any handshakes today," calling it mature, classy, and surprisingly diplomatic. They pointed out how he didn't escalate tension, didn't insult anyone, didn't take the bait. To them, this was proof that a leader can stay calm even when disrespected. Group 2, the reporter was making a statement. This side argued that the reporter wasn't being rude. He was making a silent protest. They said refusing the handshake was symbolic, a way to express disagreement without shouting or arguing. Some defended the gesture as a personal boundary, claiming no one is obligated to shake hands, especially in political environments filled with controversy. To them, the refusal was courage, not disrespect. Group 3, both sides played it smart. This small group believed the moment benefited both individuals. The reporter got attention for standing his ground. Trump got attention for staying calm and controlled. Both walked away with a spotlight shining directly on them. But the debate didn't stop there. Body language experts began posting analysis videos. They broke down the reporter's crossed arms, the stiffness in his jaw, the angle of Trump's wrist, even the way Trump pulled his hand back. Every tiny movement became a puzzle piece in a larger debate. Some experts claimed the reporter's refusal was premeditated, planned, prepared, and executed with confidence. Others insisted he looked uncomfortable and nervous once Trump responded calmly, as though he hadn't expected the moment to backfire. News channels hosted panel discussions. Headlines flashed across screens. Was a reporter's gesture justified? Trump's poised reaction surprised his critics. Handshake incident sparks political firestorm. Every commentator had an opinion. Every show replayed the moment. Every network found a new angle to explore. And social media? It went wild. Memes exploded across platforms. One showed Trump extending his hand with the caption, "When you try to be polite, but life says no." Another showed the reporter refusing the handshake with the line, "Not today, sir, not today." But the most viral memes were the ones that highlighted Trump's calmness. People weren't used to seeing him absorb disrespect so quietly. It created a sort of shock effect, unexpected, amusing, and strangely admirable to many viewers. Even people who usually didn't follow politics found themselves commenting. The clip was short, the drama was clear, and the symbolism was universal: respect, pride, ego, control. It was a kind of moment that transcended political sides and tapped into something deeply human. By the end of the day, the clip had millions of views. By the end of the week, it had sparked thousands of discussions. By the end of the month, it was still being debated. And perhaps the most surprising part, most people didn't talk about what the reporter did. They talked about how Trump responded. The calmness overshadowed the refusal. The composure overshadowed the conflict. And the moment became bigger than politics. It became a study in how a single reaction can flip the entire narrative upside down. In the days that followed, the handshake incident transformed from a brief, awkward moment into a surprisingly powerful lesson. Millions of people around the world watched the clip again and again, not because of the refusal itself, but because of how Trump handled it. What could have turned into a loud confrontation became a quiet display of control. And that silence, that calmness, sparked a deeper reflection. People began using the clip in motivational videos. Speakers broke it down as an example of emotional intelligence. Psychologists used it to explain how humans react to confrontation. It wasn't just a political moment anymore. It had slipped into the realm of human behavior, leadership, and personal strength. The lesson was simple but profound. You cannot control how others treat you, but you can control how you respond. The reporter made a choice. He chose confrontation without words. Trump made a different choice. He chose to rise above it. One act was rooted in emotion. The other was rooted in strategy. And for millions watching, it became a reminder that the most powerful move in any conflict is often the calmest one. People began sharing their own interpretations online. That reaction showed maturity. He handled disrespect like a pro. This is how a leader should behave under pressure. It's amazing how calm could defeat aggression. Across platforms, viewers noted something interesting. The reporter's refusal didn't embarrass Trump. Instead, the way Trump reacted ended up putting the spotlight back on him, positively. The moment taught an unspoken rule of conflict. The one who stays calm usually ends up in control. And this idea resonated deeply. Parents shared the video with their kids to teach them about handling bullies. Teachers used it to demonstrate self-control. Even business coaches used the clip in seminars about leadership and negotiation. It spread far beyond political lines and landed in everyday life. Because the handshake incident wasn't just about politics. It was about respect. It was about ego. It was about strength. And every viewer recognized at least one piece of themselves in the moment. For some, the lesson was about patience. For others, it was about emotional maturity. For many, it was about dignity in the face of disrespect. The clip reminded people that gestures, whether they are offered or refused, hold meaning. And when someone rejects you in public, the easiest response is anger, but the strongest response is control. A refusal lasts a second. A reaction can last forever. And in this case, the calm reaction spoke volumes. It showed that sometimes silence is louder than argument, and composure is more powerful than confrontation. It showed that leadership isn't only about speaking, but also about choosing when not to speak. So in the end, the viral moment wasn't remembered for what the reporter refused to do. It was remembered for what Trump chose to do. A handshake didn't happen, but a lesson did. A lesson about pride, patience, and human behavior. A lesson that people everywhere can understand, regardless of politics. And that's why the moment stayed alive online. Not because of the conflict, but because of the calm.